Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What a great pleasure it is for me to be here. Mayor knows how to get a crowd out, doesn't he? Speculation running rampant about what will take place in about an hour. I told him earlier today that it was not fair to have to speak before that announcement because everything is coming to a climax at that 1:30 announcement. It better be good, Mayor. It better be good. The very marvelous and good days in my life I have always labeled as chocolate chip cookie days. I wear a little pin with a bite out of the chocolate chip cookie. I guess my love for chocolate chip cookies started in my very young youth during World War II, when various commodities were in very short supply around the country. Some of you are as old as I may remember. Gasoline, tires, sugar, lots of chocolate was one of those. And our parents received a little booklet called rationing stamps, and they could surrender one of those rationing stamps for a pound of chocolate or a gallon of gasoline or whatever the case may be. And so it evenly distributed the scarce resources among the population. When I came home from school and I could smell that marvelous aroma of chocolate chip cookies baking in the oven, I knew that it was a special day at our house because Mom had surrendered one of those valuable stamps. And hence, over the years, the special days I've called chocolate chip cookie days. And as I look out over this audience and think about what has been discussed this morning and what it involves looking forward to the future of one of the great cities of the state of Utah, it has to be a chocolate chip cookie day for all of us, and particularly for the city of Provo. My congratulations to the mayor and his staff for the hard work they've put in the preparing for this conference and what they've done to prepare for the formulation of a long-term plan for Provo. Certainly I don't have the credentials of those who have occupied this podium earlier today. I'm not a land planner. I have little knowledge of architecture. I feel like I'm an unwanted male at a Relief Society meeting sometimes. Or maybe it's the wearing my red Utah hat at the Cougar Club. But either one of those, in terms of credentials, I am at a loss. But what I am a cheerleader. I'm an advocate. I'm a testifier because I've been through this refining fire a number of times. I think that I have had 4 such envisioning experiences during the last 20 years. So I know a little bit about what has been going on in Provo. I know what it takes. I know the issues that are involved. And I compliment and congratulate those who have brought this planning effort to this point in the collaborative process of determining the destiny of this great city. Let's take a walk down memory lane for just a minute. There's a few of you who can remember what Provo was like 50 years ago. I suspect as I look back over the audience, the average age of this group might be a little north of 50, probably north of 55, maybe approaching 60, I don't know. But what was Utah County and Provo like 50 years ago? Well, let me just tweak your memories just a little bit. At that time, in 1960, this valley had just 100,000 population, spread out over its many little communities. The major employer was a steel plant, put together as an inland steel plant to protect the steel industry during World War II. BYU was composed mostly of local young people. The beautiful, what is now the beautiful East Bay area was the old Ironton steel plant. Does that bring memories to any of you? The Marriott Center and LaVelle Edwards Stadium hadn't been built. UVW didn't exist except as a small vocational school near Provo High. Sundance Resort was still the undiscovered Temp Haven. I-15 hadn't been completed, and Highway 89 was the only route that folks used to travel to Salt Lake City. That frustrating travel between Provo and Salt Lake through the myriad of little cities took on the average of an hour and 40 minutes. Major thoroughfares like University Parkway, 800 North didn't exist, or were at that time very small, rural kinds of roads or trails. University Avenue terminated near BYU. There wasn't any bus service. In fact, UTA didn't even exist at that point in time. 50 years ago, the intervening 50 years have brought much change, not only to the city of Provo, and county of Utah, but the state of Utah as well. The issue before us, and ones you've been grappling with and been talking about, is what is this community going to look like 50 years from now? It's hard to imagine that the future has in store for Provo and the Wasatch Front 50 years from now. In 2063, those 50 years, it's projected that this valley will have well over 1 million residents. And the Wasatch Front will be home to more than 7 million residents. The Salt Lake area will have more people than the city of Los Angeles does today. If current trends continue, there will be about 5 million vehicles to accommodate. That doesn't sound to me like a panacea of great joy to know how we're going to deal with those kinds of numbers, but yet that is likely reality and the challenges that we will have. So what are the questions that we need to grapple with? What are the issues as they ultimately will be resolved? Well, in my mind, there's about 5. What will the quality of life be like for future Utahns and future residents of Provo? Number 1. What will the quality be like for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren? Where will they live? Where will they work? Where will they play? How will we accommodate 5 million vehicles? Or will we be innovative in terms of not every household having 1, 2, 3, or 4 vehicles? How will our public schools accommodate so many diverse children? What transportations will be available? These and many, many, many more questions are the ones that we're striving to answer and to think about as you go through this process of envisioning Provo 50 years out. You know, as we look back, there are some examples of some great planning that was done in the past. One has to just think about the CUP and what happened to provide water over a long period of time to these arid valleys on the west slopes of the Wasatch Mountains. The I-15 corridor is another prime example of what that envisioning has been. Successful communities just don't happen organically. They just don't come out of the atmosphere. It takes planning, it takes a lot of effort. They are the product of dedicated individuals, organizations, and community councils, and concerned citizens. That's what we have gathered today, are those identical folks, dedicated individuals, a lot representing organizations of one kind or another, city council members, not only Provo, but other communities, and interested and very concerned citizens. Consider Brigham Young for a moment and the early pioneers that arrived into the barren Salt Lake Valley. Among their first duties was to draft a community plan. They laid out the transportation network. They laid out each neighborhood. They designated where the farms would be placed and where the areas of commerce would be located. They designed and accounted for the irrigation systems and much, much more. One of these days, I hope I have the opportunity of asking Brother Brigham about why he created 10-acre blocks downtown Salt Lake City. 10-acre blocks are not to be found in virtually any city in the United States. They're unworkable for a lot of reasons. But nevertheless, from our earliest days, our pedigree charts have been such that we are planners. We want to have the quality of life that we all enjoy. More recently, planning efforts have occurred here in Utah. A lot of good planning has been done. Wasatch Choice 2040 is one of those exercises that has yielded great results and has resulted in Utah's unified transportation plan for the next 30 years. And so we do have a rich heritage of looking out, finding ways to plan our communities. That Wasatch Choice, as an example, was an effort led by 18 mayors and county officials of the Mountain Land Association of Governments and the Wasatch Front Regional Council in Envision, Utah. The envisioning effort recommends focusing growth in several unique activity centers or clusters across the region, many of which are coordinated with our existing road and transit works. The Wasatch Choice community clusters are located where the regional destinations have grown, where economic activity has clustered, or strategic locations where growth can be more easily accommodated. Provo is certainly one of those strategic places. The Wasatch Choice for 2040 became the basis for the state's current transportation plan, as I mentioned, and the Unified Transportation Plan. Wasatch Choice for 2040 was a large-scale, multi-regional effort. Now it's up to folks like you and the residents of this community to prepare the local strategies that can tie into those multi-county kinds of operations. How do you want your neighborhood to grow? What kinds of transportation systems do you want here and on your streets? How and where can you accommodate double, even triple the population? How will people live, work, and play here in Utah Valley and Provo City? Those are the significant questions that arise from these kinds of activities. So now's the time for the interested parties in this community to step forward and maintain their status as one of those regional centers in the state of Utah. The Orem-Provo area has long been recognized as a desirable place to live and places high in most all of the ratings and rankings you see about livability. For us to continue to enjoy that kind of prestige and that kind of lifestyle will require our best efforts in making certain that our children and grandchildren have the same blessings and opportunities that we all enjoy. Why is it hard? If this were easy, everybody can accomplish it. Why is this such a hard endeavor? Well, a couple of things come to my mind. Number one, for the most part, after a plan is put together, cities have to invest. And the results of those investments aren't readily apparent for many years. That's a difficult political hurdle to get over when we have communities that are strapped for cash and have a hard time, in some cases, meeting their yearly operational expenses. The strain on local budgets is a big concern. To some extent, there are competing interests, even within this body of people. As I dropped in a couple of the discussions, it's very evident there are competing ideas, there are competing interests, both economic and philosophical, that make the process of collaboration extremely difficult. But now's the time. Now's the time we need to, as President Hinckley would say, stand tall. In the face of those kinds of interests, we also have to have a lot of backbone, because no sooner is a plan put down than there will be attempts to circumvent the plan. Influential developer or someone else will try to bust the plan. Well, years ago, we started the envisioning process and the nearly 400,000 acres that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints owns in Central Florida. I learned that the most difficult issue surrounding that envisioning process, because there was a small, very, very small population in those on those acres, was dealing with the political subdivisions, one way or another, to plan for the ultimate development of that valuable piece of property. In Utah, and particularly in Utah County, you don't have that problem in that the mayors meet regularly together. The counties are affiliated in association with each other. But what I did find in two other locations, one in the North Shore of Hawaii, were the same kinds of issues that are going to be present here in Provo. Those competing interests of the residents, being able to get consensus among the group, and then standing tall and administering the plan that's determined. On the other hand, we had experienced the same thing in New Zealand. There, the community came together, both the church community and the outside community, and that process went beautifully. One envisioning project is going on now on the west side of the lake. Much of the future of Utah County, in my opinion, lies on that west side of the lake. If this valley is going to have 1 million people, and we've got to carefully and thoughtfully develop that part of the lake and those interests that surround it. Well, my congratulations to all of you for being here today, for your interest. This is the most difficult part of the process, is really to get started and get this far along. But it's hard work. I love the quote from Norman Vincent Peale. Action is a great restorer and builder of confidence. Inaction is not only the result, but the cause of fear. Perhaps the action you take will be successful. Perhaps different actions or adjustments will have to follow. But any action is better than no action at all. Another reason, concern expressed by many is that there seems to be a fear to fail. A fear to fail to reach consensus and come together as a group. Winston Churchill said, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." So as in the planning process, as consensus becomes more difficult, you keep going. The plan is not a static document. It is a revolving, evolutionary kind of a document. But planning needs leadership. It needs resolve from the top. And it was Abraham Lincoln who said, "Always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any other." If the 400 or 500 people who have been here today resolve that personally, that they can be a catalyst to help make this happen in this marvelous community, then success is assured. And lastly, no document is ever perfect, or no plan is ever perfect. And sometimes you have to retrace your steps and rethink out some of the things. But it was Albert Einstein who said, "Anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new." And so be it. Ladies and gentlemen, again, my congratulations for what you've accomplished. My challenge to each one of you is to resolve to make it happen, that Provo and its environs may continue to be a marvelous place to live, raise a family, enjoy security and safety, and neighborhoods that are livable and walkable, and that the quality of life can be one that we can all be envious of. Thank you for your attendance today. Thank you for all that you do to make our communities better. May I just take 2 or 3 minutes and I'll respond to a couple of questions if there are any from the audience. Anyone? Seeing no hands. You're all waiting for the 1:30 announcement. We ought to see if the mayor wants to tease us a little bit more with what it could be or what it couldn't be. I heard him this morning on the Doug Wright show, and he was about as articulate as one could be without saying anything. But again, thank you for the opportunity of sharing the morning with you. Indeed, it has been a chocolate chip cookie day for me. Thank you.